Infrastructure Committee is now in session. Mr. Vice Chair, will you move the next bill, please?
1139, wasn't it? Okay. Mr. Chairman, I move that Senate Bill 1132 be returned with a due pass recommendation.
Mr. Chair, members, SB 1132 establishes the Amateur Radio Operator Special Plate Fund. The bill outlines the distribution of monies in the fund and outlines criteria for the nonprofit organization benefiting from the plate. And with that, I'm available for questions.
Members, any questions for staff? Mr. Vice Chair, will you call the first witness, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I call Thomas Boza. Will you please state your name and how much time you want to give me? Okay.
Chairman of the committee, my name is Thomas Boza. I'm an amateur radio operator. I represent the ARRL, the Amateur Radio Relay League for Arizona. I'm here to ask for the support of SB 1132. And what this is for the amateur radio license plates. Currently, we do have the amateur radio license plates already in process, or you can go out and purchase them. They're already available today. But we are not collecting any of the money from these plates for our organization or the 503c organization that we'd like to give the funds to. Most of the specialized plates, people that have the specialized plates, they collect a certain amount of money. I think it's $17 of the 25, and that goes into a 503c organization of their choosing, of their organization. And we'd like to obtain that money for our organization. Some of the things we would do with that money is we want to give away college scholarships and promote the technology, both at the university, ASU, U of A level, and with the community colleges. We want to award scholarships. Also, we work with the Boy Scouts and the Girl Scouts. We support communications. We have what we call jamborees on the air, where we have the young scouts work with the technology to learn how radio works. If you're not aware, but your cell phone is a radio. It does transmit and receive. So is your laptop. It uses Wi-Fi communications, which is radio communications. So we're promoting this type of technology into the youth and the younger generation. We also work with ASU and U of A to support what we call a project called Near Space. We launch weather balloons into the upper atmosphere. The students build electronic equipment to gather pollution data, wind data, temperature data, and all this data from the weather balloons are transmitted back to the Earth using amateur radio. And one other thing is we work with the American Red Cross and FEMA. So some of the funds that we receive from the amateur radio license plates will be used to help communicate during emergency disasters. With that, I'll entertain any questions you may have about the funding.
Members, any questions for the witness? Mr. Andrade, Representative Andrade.
Yes, Mr. Chairman and Mr. Boza.
Thomas Boza, yes, sir.
Thank you. So currently, where's the funds going now? I mean,
Just into the Arizona General Fund. We've never collected a penny.
okay. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me speak.
You bet. We have the bill sponsors here. Will Senator Bartow please come forward? And just for the record, Senator Bartow, identify yourself and speak to your bill.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. Nancy Bartow, State Senator, District 15. Appreciate you hearing the bill today and putting it on your agenda. Members, I'm not sure how much testimony you've already heard, but I just feel blessed to have been able to sponsor this in league with with Representative Allen here in the House. When we were contacted by our constituent about the addressing this, it's an obvious oversight in terms of it hasn't been dealt with for way too many years since they paid off that initial payment where they decided not to have the funds in lieu of the startup costs as an organization. Now they're just losing a lot of money and they're not getting any benefit for paying those license plates. And it's frankly discouraging them in their groups from purchasing the license plates when there's no benefit to what they're doing, to benefit all the great things that they're doing. So I think it's a common sense fix, and it's not much of a change. ADOT is fine with it. So in terms of funding, and it's not a cost to the general fund.
Members, any questions from the bill sponsor? If not, thank you very much, Senator Bartow, for coming forward. We appreciate that. Thank
you very much. And I just can't say enough about the great things that amateur ham radio operators do for our state. They just impress me to no end about all of the incredible service that they support our communities with, that we have no idea they do behind the scenes, and they do it gladly and willingly, and they put in so much effort, and they want to pass that on to the next generation. So thank you for your support of the bill.
Senator Bartow, my vice chair has a comment he'd like to make.
Senator Bartow, I'll tell you a little story about quick story about the amateur radio people. I went camping on the other side of the Grand Mountains one time with my little baby kid. My wife and I did, and my battery went dead on my truck. I had a CB in the vehicle. I was able to call down, and somebody picked it up in Fort Grant area. They called an amateur radio guy. He got around the mountain because there wasn't any electricity going on. The guy was on a generator, and he called and got a tow truck to come up and jump start my vehicle, and it was snowing. And so I appreciate the amateur radio people, because with the world being into digital, if we ever have the movies you see on TV, the zombie apocalypse things, hey, we're covered. We got our amateur radio guys to take care of us. So I appreciate them and a personal experience, and I wanted to thank you for bringing this bill up.
Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Bartow. Mr. Vice Chair, will you call the next witness?
Yes, Mr. Chair, we have Robert Spencer. Robert? Okay, then next we have Virgil. Okay, Virgil. Tell me your last name when you get up there, buddy.
Yeah, my name is Virgil Silhonic, K7VZ is my call. But yeah, we're here today representing, there's 20,000 licensed amateur radio operators in the state, from many clubs and organizations. We all fall under the umbrella of the Amateur Radio Council of Arizona, and that's where we plan to fund the $17 from each plate. As Tom said, this is not a new plate. We're simply changing the original plate. The specialty plate funds, from what we understand, or the specialty plate program was created in '95, and our amateur radio plate was created around 2004. At that time, we didn't have the $33,000 design fee, so we returned the whole $25 fee to the state. So now, 12, 13 years later, we're looking at trying to get the $17 fee from each plate to ARCA. There's currently almost 60 specialty plates, and we're the only plate that doesn't benefit for a nonprofit. And as touched on, ARCA currently provides scholarships. We'd be able to better support those programs. There's the Boy Scouts, the ANSR programs that we support, as well as at the state, county, and local levels. We work with emergency communications programs. We're called amateur radio operators, but a lot of us are far from amateurs. So we practice and drill with public service events. So a lot of the bicycle and the marathon events, you'll see us out there manning checkpoints, communicating to make sure that runners, bikers are all safe. We use those as scheduled disasters to practice on. Some examples of last year when the Super Bowl was over in Glendale, local CERT teams and amateur radio teams helped support the Super Bowl. There's also, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, there was a fiber line that was cut between Flagstaff and Phoenix, which knocked out most of the phone lines in northern Arizona. Hams came to the rescue there and helped provide communications until those services were restored. We also work with like Palo Verde, the power plant. They do monthly siren tests, and Skywarn and other programs. So emergency communications is also a large part of what a lot of us do. So, with that,
Members, do we have any questions for the witness? Representative Saltate?
Yes, I have a question. So you've already have gone through the process of getting your plates all.
yeah, the plate, you can go, with the amateur radio plate, it's kind of like the veterans plate as well. You have to show your proof of your license to acquire it. You can't, the general public can't, or, not everybody can just apply for it, but once you show them their license, then it's already currently being issued.
So, Mr. Bosa, so you initially paid the $32,000 for.
We did not pay the $33,000, but it's been since 2004, so 12 or 13 years that the state has been collecting 100% of those funds. We're simply asking that from this point forward, we get $17 of the $25 fee. So the original $33,000 has been paid many times over.
Okay, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You bet. Representative Rubalcaba.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I don't know if this gentleman here can answer the question, but a clarification: the money goes into HERF, not the general fund, right?
Okay, yeah, I believe you're right.
Okay, and so if that's the case, what fiscal impact would this have? When it comes to,
Staff.
Is any member?
or do we know like how many plates of these special plates we sell a year?
There currently, there's as of last year's reporting, there's 1,078 issued. I think that comes out to just over $18,000 at the $25 rate, or no, at the $17, it's $18,000. Kind of as Senator Barto, we can't give you numbers, but obviously if we get this passed, there's going to be a lot more hams. That we've got 20,000 hams in the state, and only just over 1,000 have this plate. So we certainly project that there'll be more plates issued. As well, to answer that of instead of setting it up with the original $33,000 design fee, which we could have done, and collecting our $17 to current day, the state has already collected way more funds than the original $33,000 if we would have done that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Mr. Vice Chair, please call the next witness.
Yes, we have Steve Miller. Steve here.
Mr. Miller, come forward and identify yourself for the record, please.
Hey, my name is Steve Miller. I'm representing the Maricopa Amateur Radio Association, the Amateur Radio Council of Arizona, and Arizona Near Space Research. We're all amateur radio groups. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, thank you for the opportunity to speak today. I would imagine it isn't every day that someone comes to you with a bill that absolutely has no impact at all financially on the state, and I believe this is one of those bills. As we know, and as the prior witnesses have said, this is a license plate that's been in existence since 2004. The $25 fee for that plate has went entirely to the state, and at the time it was put into existence, it was by design. We waived that fee because we didn't have the resources to pay the $33,000 all at once, nor do we now. But over the time since 2004, we believe that more than enough money has been played in to cover that fee over and over several times. ARCA, the organization, 501c3 organization that the money would go to, is a general organization that represents most of the amateur radio organizations in Arizona. It's a statewide organization with about 32 member clubs. I could talk forever on the virtues of amateur radio and the things that we do, but I promise I won't do that. However, we are involved heavily in different things like emergency communications. We do prepare daily for the zombie apocalypse. We're one of the few communications media that would survive just about any eventuality in loss of communications. For example, Morse code is very much alive and well in our world, and that's something that we can use for emergency communications if necessary. We do things in terms of public service. We support law enforcement for things like, as already mentioned, the Super Bowl, the P.F. Chang Rock and Roll Marathon. That frees law enforcement up to do the more important jobs that they have to do. We do this as volunteers. we're prohibited by law, by our FCC license, from collecting any money for the services that we provide. So it's all voluntary, hence the name amateur radio. So your passage of 1132, I believe, would help us do the things that we want to do, provide scholarships, provide training, promote amateur radio within the community, and I think we can do that without any cost to the state at all.
Thank you, sir. And members, any questions for the witness? Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you.
Okay, the motion before you is that Senate Bill 1132 receive a due pass recommendation. If there's no further discussion about this issue, staff, will you please call the roll?
Mr. Andrade.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to explain my vote.
Please.
Mr. Chairman, members, and I remember I used to work with another engineer on the railroad, and he was a ham operator, and I was always fascinated how this is way back when we could have electronic equipment on the locomotives, but every locomotive we were on was already outfitted where all he had to do was plug in for his power source and talk to people coming down the hill, what we call coming down the hill. And it was always fun to work with him because I learned a lot. He taught me how to be a great engineer that I am today. Well, at least a good engineer, I should say. But it was really fascinating to hear him speak, and it takes a lot of training, a lot of getting into the practice of doing it. So with that, I gladly vote aye.
Mr. Cook. Aye. Mr. Mosley.
Mr. Chairman, may I explain my vote?
Yes, Mr. Mosley, please.
I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and our stakes, which we have a whole bunch of them, they all want at least one licensed ham radio operator in case of an emergency, whether that be a power outage or a dam breaking or a national crisis or something like that. So I am in support of you guys getting this money so that you guys can have scholarships and you guys can forward this effort. And with that, I vote aye.
Mr. Payne.
Aye.
Mr. Rubalcaba.
Aye.
Mr. Saldante.
Aye.
Mr. John.
Aye.
Chairman Campbell.
Aye. Members, by your vote of 8 ayes, 0 nays, all present, Senate Bill 1132 has received a due pass.